English 338. How are you? How you doing? I'll get closer to the camera. How are you? I say that because this is the crunch time of the semester. This is week 14. We have week 15 and then final exams week, the third week of May. And this is the time when you're doing all the things at once. You're drinking all the Red Bull. You're trying to keep yourself awake. You're trying to get all these projects done. And you know what happens when we rush through things is we often lose that reflective capacity. We put our heads down, nose to the grindstone, doing the next right thing. And that's wonderful. If you are managing your life right now, then I'd say that that's a success. But the other thing too is don't forget to stop and reflect on where you've been and where you're going. And not just, I'm going to get a grade in this class, I'm going to get a passing grade, or I'm going to finish, or I'm going to graduate, but what you will have learned. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through some of the things that you should be thinking about right now, both in terms of one, your digital story, and two, your reflection, semester reflection. Let me share my screen with you and we'll go one by one. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, this tentative schedule right here, puts us right here by Wednesday. Oh, sorry, I forgot to share. By Wednesday, oops, take two. I want you to make sure that you post your revised digital story to your Currents community along with a short reflection using two terms from the success model or the big five. What does that mean? That means in a Currents post, you give me the link to the thing where it lives online, and that's important that it must live online somewhere that somebody besides me might see it. Think audience. And also it's accompanied by at least two paragraphs in which you say, here's how I did that thing. Here's how I achieved that goal that Finkel and Leon talked about. Here is how I did one of the C's in success, or here's how I did that embodiment thing that Dana Cloud was talking about in the Big Five. Remember, these were our readings from the second half of the semester. So what does that look like? Well, let's go there first. I want us to be thinking in these ways. First and foremost, remember the assignment sheet right here. This is a digital story whose purpose is to tell a story. It should be story-like in some capacity. You should be telling a story, feeling like you're telling a story. But when you step back for a second, one of the things that I'm going to do as I start to look at these digital stories will be a couple of terms like purpose. I will try to be thinking about, well, what is your purpose here? What actions, rhetorically, do you hope to spur? What's your aim? What do you want to accomplish with this video? Now, you don't have to say, here is what my purpose is. It should be enacted or embodied, as Dana Cloud would say, by the choices that you make. Secondly, your audience. Is it just everybody in the universe? I'd say no, because not everybody in the universe is going to see it. Instead, what I've tried to focus on are the ways in which we address certain people with environmental rhetoric that we hope we can change, both in terms of how they think about a particular issue or in terms of how they might act related to that environmental issue. That could be regular folk, and you could be saying, we have to mobilize, we have to put ourselves into groups, we have to start a social movement around this particular environmental issue. Or it could be decision makers who can actually take needed action, policy action and otherwise, in order to enact change on this issue. So who is your intended audience? Let's be clear in terms of your rhetorical choices who that intended audience is. Third, narrative probability. What does that mean? You're telling a story, and it should hang together internally as a story in some way in your video or in your digital story in some way. What they call presence, salience, or ekphrasis. Ekphrasis. Vividness, vivid details, descriptive language, images that stand out, things that appeal to us, ways of connecting with an audience that start in the beautiful things all around us. Identification with the goal ultimately that you're creating identification. That is between yourself and your audience. The way that we persuade is through identification. If identification has occurred, it means you are using your ethos to align your values and your beliefs with an audience's values or beliefs. Then finally, the visual rhetoric aspect of this. You've chosen a platform and a set of images or strategies of using that platform that seems to support your overall argument, your choice of audience, and your purpose. Okay, so I'm hoping that what you're doing is you're looking at this document and you're asking yourself those questions. You're saying to yourself, am I doing this thing? Am I reaching that as a goal? Does my digital story ultimately reflect the kind of goals or criteria that we see here? But another thing that I'm asking you to do, of course, is to be thinking through and reflecting on some of those choices. And this is where Finkel and Leon's language and Dana Cloud's language could be useful for us. So what I'm saying is, please write 2 paragraphs explaining how your project embodies at least 2 of the aspects of success, or the big 5. Now, what could that mean? I want you to explain to me in a paragraph how 2 of these terms seem to operate in your digital story. What does that mean? I want, okay, simple. How is your digital story simple? Doesn't mean stupid, doesn't mean short. It means simple. You have a simple message. The whale watching video was, maybe we should reconsider whale watching. Maybe you shouldn't do it so much. Maybe it puts whales at risk. Let's just think about these things. It's not a complicated argument. Get away from the damn whales. That's the, don't get so close to whales. Like, super simple, right? But when it turns out is they had different kinds of ways of making that argument happen. Is it concrete? The concreteness of the video or the digital story will be in the different kinds of ways in which you take us there. You show us pictures of the thing or video of the thing, or you write about the thing, whatever that thing is. Credible? You are credible because you have experienced it, but you are credible because you are knowledgeable. You have a major, perhaps in a science, that enables you to tell the story, that enables you to bring that major's work to bear on the story that you're telling. Use your major, use the research you've done in the major, use what you've learned in order to make your story credible. Is it unexpected? Are you telling us the expected thing that we already knew? Is it just to give a hoot, don't pollute? Or are you doing something better, more nuanced, more focused? Is there something new there? Is it unexpected to us, or maybe even a bit surprising? Emotional? Don't shy away from emotion. Scientists for years thought that they should be abstaining from emotion because that's the only way they could be objective. We now know that objectivity is something of a contested subject. One can't always be as objective as one wants. And of course, in the case of people who study butterflies on the slopes of mountains in Colorado, they want those butterflies to continue to live. They have an emotional investment in addition to their intellectual investment. They want to continue to study the butterflies. They want them to live. They want to do the things that will promote biodiversity for butterflies. Based in science, there better be some science. You better bring the science. You better show us some science in order to help us see how credible your point of view is and how much we know about ways we need to act. And finally, doing storytelling, like I said before, it needs to be ekphrastic in some way. Vivid details and narrative probability, tell a story, place us there. The big 5 may be a little bit harder to think through, but affect, embodiment, myth, narrative, and spectacle. Okay. Affect, emotion. Embodiment, that is concreteness. Myth, don't use myth. Narrative, again, what I said about narrative. And spectacle, surprise, um, bigness, the bigness of the big five, the big needed change we need to make in our lives, or the amazing new insight that you've come across. All of these help us see the spectacle. So what are you doing here? Well, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and come back to it. You, by Wednesday, are going to post that link. You're going to reflect on how you achieved 2 of those goals. And you're going to write me 2 paragraphs explaining how each one of those goals is met, for a total of 2 paragraphs on 2 different characteristics from the success model or the big 5. Now, let's address the other issue. In a week and a half, then, little more than a week and a half, this course is going to end officially. We'll have a little bit of time during the final exam period, but we're not having a final exam period per se. You're just going to have to revise your things. Now, there are 60 different digital story projects, and I will move through them assiduously as much as possible, but I cannot guarantee that you're going to have feedback from me immediately. I'll read them and respond to them and give you a grade and tell you where you are. But you should make them as good as possible coming in, because otherwise I just don't see that you have a huge amount of time to revise. There could be ways in which you revise, but again, the other issue with a digital story is it could be difficult to revise. An ArcGIS story map is probably very easy to revise, but a video that you've already cut the images for and done the soundtrack, and you got a voiceover, you got to redo the voiceover. Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. A lot more work than just adding a paragraph to a paper. So your goal should be to make this draft as good as humanly possible. It is not just your first attempt. It is your 30th attempt. It is your revised draft, hopefully based on some of the feedback that you got from your peers in the last couple of weeks. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us right here. I would like to make sure that what you do coming up then is start to think about this other thing called a reflection. And I am going to take you there now. The semester reflection that you write for our class is one that is focused on your own learning. That's maybe hard to do, but you've left traces of your learning all over this course. You have made 2 big projects happen this semester, one rhetorical analysis and one digital story. You've written, commented, questioned, argued in perusal throughout 6 different readings. And you've been a constant commentator in Google Currents for these many weeks. What does this mean? Your learning has happened everywhere and all over the place. And I'm very proud of the learning that you have done. What I want you to do then in a reflection document or thing, you could even, do this as a video if you wanted. It's up to you. But I think a document would probably be better because it's easier. I want you to talk to me about your learning. What do you feel you've learned in this course? What will you take from this course and apply to the future? What will you do with what you've learned here? How will it change your behavior or your ideas? How will it change how you communicate in the future? All of these questions will help me understand what you feel you've learned. I say it right here. What have you learned about rhetoric in this course? That is, what new insights have you developed about persuasion in general, arguments about environmental issues, or the uses and perils of communicating in the public sphere about sustainability? Think back across all of the work that you've done in this course, which I've just gone over, but also think forward into your immediate or perhaps distant future. You're graduating, you're moving on, you're getting a job in an environmental field, you're getting a job in a non-environmental field that needs to be environmental. Okay. As we face the challenges of an uncertain world, what in this class helped broaden your understanding of the consequences of people's communication choices? What insights have you developed? And how could you apply those insights into the future? Okay. The best reflections, I'll say, shouldn't be formal. You don't have a thesis for this unless you want to. There are no 3 reasons. This is a reflective draft where you talk about yourself and you use I to talk about yourself. And in fact, you just go for self. You talk about what you got out of this class and maybe what you feel like you didn't get out of this class. Now, this is not I loved or hated this class, or you're a great teacher or a terrible teacher. Although I'm very interested in those kinds of questions, that is the work of an SET. I'm not interested in my teaching. I'm interested in your learning, because how I teach depends on how you feel you've learned, and I will change my teaching based on what you say about your learning. Okay, so I don't need you to tell me about my teaching. I need you to talk about yourself and reflect on your learning. Okay. I'll also say really quickly, end of semester, we're all out of steam. I'm going to grade them credit, no credit. I can't grade your reflection on the quality of the reflection. Now I could, but I'm not gonna. If there was some great reflection going on, you get full credit. If there was some half-ass reflection going on, still probably get full credit. If you don't turn one in, you won't get any credit. So that's how that operates. What does this mean then in terms of our tentative schedule? Let's think about this, and one final sharing of the screen. I'll show you where we are. By Wednesday, revise digital story to your current community, along with 2 paragraphs reflecting on the assignment, the digital story assignment. The rest of week 14 and into week 15, you are free to reflect in any way, shape, or form on your learning across the entire semester. But the more detailed that you are and the more focused on what you feel you're walking away with out of the things you've done in this class, I think the better these reflections will be. You'll be able to work on this, and you should turn it in by Monday of finals week, which to my reckoning right here is May 17th. It's now May 3rd, so you have 2 weeks from today to be working on this. What does this mean? The time that remains in the course is for you to be reflecting or revising, to set up appointments with me so that you can talk about your revisions of the rhetorical analysis essay, or if you really do think that there's something that needs to be done with your digital story, please, let's just brush up a meeting and I'll look at your digital story and we'll go from there. So whole bunch of reflection going on, whole bunch of revision if you would like, only if you would like, but if you would like to revise some of the big products in this class. Big long video, I am sorry, but a lot of things going on right here at the end, and I hope you all are doing well.